Ben Hogan's golf swing is watched by millions and millions of you on YouTube every single day. Why? Because it is a thing of beauty. Many of you watching this are trying to replicate some of the fantastic things that Ben Hogan does, whether it be his body's rotation, his stability, his wrist hinge, his lag, his impact position, his weight transference, or simply all of the above. But I have narrowed it down to 3 things that you can do better in your golf swing to improve your balance, your stability, and your overall ball striking. Just before I continue with the gold that is about to come out of this video, please do hit that subscribe button because there's so much more content for you to come. If you like the way I coach, then you are more than welcome to add me on the Skillest app, which is a golf coaching app. You get a free online swing analysis, and then we can set up a Zoom call and discuss your lessons and your goals and aspirations for 2025, or whenever you're watching this video, 26, in more detail. But enjoy the rest of this video because there's some really important points within it I think you can learn a lot from. Okay, tip number 1, we're going to be talking about Ben Hogan's right knee position at setup, because he gets a really kind of interesting looking lower body position. He puts this right knee pointing more in towards the center of his stance, meanwhile making sure that he keeps his lower body relatively parallel to the target. A lot of you may do this and just ever so slightly open up this lower body towards the target, which I'm not massively against. And you know why? Because if you get into this position at setup, what that tells me is that you're kind of already waiting for that quality impact position. You're kind of half in position already. So bringing this right knee in is kind of almost practicing one of the drills that I've done in the past, where we get to the setup and we just move into an impact position, so you can start to feel and understand how it should look and feel as you move into impact. So just starting in there is a great way to get that sensation and feeling of where you want to be as you're striking the golf ball. One of the key things for this, though, is weight transfer. I see too many players trying to get their lower body into that right side. And are you one of those players as well, where you're thinking, I want to get my weight across into the right side to then start to transition into the lead side? The problem with doing this is I see many of you moving too much on the outside of this trail foot. So we end up now with the weight on the outside of the foot, the knee on the outside of the foot, the hip in line with the foot. And from here now, you can imagine the golf ball's a long way away. So it becomes really difficult to move your body's mass, not only your pressure, but your mass, so much from side to side. I often tell a lot of my students when they're set up, at setup here, just that right knee stays inside of the right foot. When they go back to the top of the backswing, just to feel as if the right knee straightens versus how it started. And in doing so, we're allowing this trail hip to rotate, and we're keeping the right knee inside of the right foot. So now I'm able to create that stability in the backswing whilst also pushing my pressure into the inside of that right foot. So Ben Hogan's kind of done the more exaggerated position where he's just kind of set in there. Now, if you set into here, what happens is your hip flexors have effectively turned in, which is going to prevent any sort of lateral movement. And I think for the majority of you watching this video, if we can prevent lateral movement, therefore concentrating more on the position we want to be in the downswing, there's a heck of a more chance of creating a good quality smash factor. So that's good quality striking, making sure we're hitting down on the ball. We've got an attack angle there of minus 5.7 degrees. So what it's done is has encouraged me to not move off the golf ball too much or at all and stay behind it. Staying behind it will probably deliver a slightly shallower angle of attack and therefore a poorer ball strike. We might see, I mean, that's a bit of a low launch angle, but we might see a really high launch angle, which will create too much loss of distance. So if I allow this right knee to move outside, oh, that's a horrendous strike. There we are, straight away. Awful strike, 1.19 on the down. Managed to get back a little bit, but that was a horrendous strike. God, I caught it super thin. So making sure that we don't move off this right side and lose the quality of strike and the distance as well. So number one is key for body stability. Number two, we're going to be talking about the positioning of Ben Hogan's arms at setup and how he keeps them so compact during the downswing as well. There are a lot of training aids out at the moment that really encourage you to keep these two forearms as close as possible. You may have seen the Tour Striker ball, you may have seen Pro Sender, both of which I have actually featured on this channel before because they're two very good training aids. And what they're encouraging you to do is just keep the forearms a little bit closer together at setup, into the backswing, and most importantly as well at the top of the backswing. Because I see a lot of players setting up where everything looks quite good. You're going to get your forearms close together at setup because your arms are relatively straight at the address position. However, when we start to move the golf swing away, I see a lot of separation in the takeaway where this right elbow just starts to bend away from the golf ball, pointing out away from the golf ball or the golf swing entirely. So now my elbows have lost that connectivity that they had at setup. Or even players that have a decent takeaway position can often end up in a really kind of separated top of the backswing position where what we call the flying elbow at the top of the swing, so the forearms are very disconnected now. And a lot can happen from here. We can extend the forearm that way and go over the top, or we can drop the elbow in and go very, very shallow. So there's no kind of, oh, that swing's going to give you X, but what it does give you is a variety of outcomes. And what Ben's done really well, sorry, Ben, talking to him like he's my best mate, you know, my mate Ben, the big BH. What he's done really well is he kept his arms super close together during the golf swing. So as he took the club away, his arms stayed close. And as he got to the top with that rotation, look how close my forearms are. So we can keep a very small ball in between the forearms there, just really feeling like we got it into that position. And what this does now, it puts the focus on the body's rotation to get to the top of the backswing, because I also see a lot of you players getting the arms into what I'd call like a superficial takeaway. I can get my arms and my shoulders looking like they've done a 90-degree turn just by kind of pressing my arms against my side. But there's no real, my stomach's still pointing here, there's no real core rotation. So by keeping the forearms closer together, it's going to encourage more of your core to rotate. Now, some of you may have some flexibility issues, but I would actually say that you'll end up swinging it shorter, but more compact, and therefore creating more power. All three of these tips will give you more distance than maybe if you're already doing one of the three wrong, because more compact will allow you to be able to move faster and create more speed. So get yourself a Tour Striker ball or something similar, or a Pro Sender, or again, something similar. It makes no difference to me what training aids you buy. Training aids are there, used by the top players. Actually, Shaw, there's one, I'll put it on the screen now because I can't remember the name, but there's one called Shaw Golf, and McIlroy was using it really recently, where it's got a ball and alignments that sticks that go over the forearms. So again, it keeps everything really connected. These are brilliant training aids that the best players in the world use, and that's why, again, if they use them, we use them, because we want to get better. That's all they're doing. But back onto this specific point, keeping those forearms close together will allow us to create a more of a or encourage us to create more rotation in the core, keep everything more powerful as we go back, but more connected. Keep that right knee just tucked inside of my right foot. And it's just a power move. Felt like a good strike, nearly 170 yards of carry. 5 degrees on the down, a little bit more launch in the last shot as well. So a decent golf swing there, if I do say so myself. And lastly, we're going to be looking at wrist hinge. You see Ben Hogan's wrist hinge, it's so active during the swing. There's so much lag on the way down, which, as we all know, as golfers, creates fantastic angle of attack to compress the golf ball, speed, because it's an extra leverage in the golf swing to create a faster club head speed, and also distance, which is obviously related to speed. Now, I want to use that lesson rather than us focusing on creating more lag, because I actually feel like that's very detrimental to a lot of players. I want to make sure we focus on wrist angles relative to club face. So I'm going to show you what is open, neutral and closed in the club face at the top of the backswing, and then from there you can look at creating the correct amount of lag to justify keeping the face square. Now, whether you have a cupped wrist or a flat wrist at the top of the backswing, then that will be actually determined a lot of the times by your grip position. So if I see a strong left hand grip and with natural wrist hinge, I'm likely to see extension at the top of the backswing, but my club face is square. So don't always assume that a cupped wrist angle means the club face is in an open position, because that is absolutely not the case. That's why I want you to be able to work on creating wrist hinge, but understanding what square is. So if I've got quite a strong left hand grip, so if I create as much wrist hinge as possible, you'll see that I've got a really cupped left wrist. But if you look at my club face, it's absolutely neutral. That's a neutral face position at the top of my backswing. Now, to understand which is which, that would be neutral, closed, and the toe hanging down will be open. So really important that you understand those three positions, because you want to create, we all want to create lag at the top of the backswing, and we want to create even more lag in that transition, so then we can release it through the golf ball. But what is important to know is that Hogan was an incredible athlete. To create that much wrist hinge, he had to get really powerful in his lateral, loads of power in his rotation to accommodate that release of the golf club on the way down. The majority of amateur golfers, because Hogan's not an amateur player, can't do that. So we don't want to create loads of wrist hinge, but I want you to create enough that gives you power, but understand that keeping the club face square at the top of the backswing is the most important thing, because I could create a huge amount of, depending on the grip obviously, but I could create a huge amount of lag at the top of the backswing, strike it incredibly well, but to the detriment of my direction, because I leave the face wide open and smash it off to the right hand side. I see a lot of players create loads of lag, and then because they don't have the body to kind of unleash that with power, the body stalls and the hands go. So now actually you're only hitting the golf ball with here because your body's stalled. So you've lost all this movement. So often this movement cumulative together against just your hands is more powerful. Your hands can add to power, but they're not the be all and end all. So when you are learning from players like Hogan, be aware that he's got incredible physical attributes to accommodate that amount of lag. But what you also need to notice is he's only doing it because he can do it whilst keeping the club face square. He's not losing the control of the face, which is, I think, for every golfer, for every one of you out there, is the most important bit. If we can keep the club face square, the ball will stay in play. We always want more distance, but then we don't want to lose that direction. So really important that, yes, we want lag, but make sure you understand what a square face is, and don't get too preoccupied with lag versus losing face control. That's really important. But tips 1 and 2 here I know are absolute gold. I hope you can learn a little bit as well from tip number 3. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you very soon.